really Crazy Bone, he was like, I was closer to him. I met the rest of them through him, you know. Lazy, it was Crazy Bone, then it was Lazy Bone, and then all the rest came into play after that. But it was mostly Crazy Bone. We were the closest. He stayed right around the corner, so. And, you know, he would always be writing lyrics and stuff and freestyling and stuff. And he had a style, you know, he just had a unique style already. You know, even before they was even serious about rapping, before they even went into the studio, you know, he would always be rapping and singing and doing little stuff in it. You know, that boy, he was ahead of his time back then as kids, you know, as teenagers. You know, even in high school and stuff, he would always be rapping and stuff. So, man, Crazy Bone all the way, man. I mean, he pretty much fed everybody else. Busy was more of a singer. He was always singing. He would rap too, but he didn't have. He could rap, but he wasn't really serious about rapping. You know, he was the ladies' man, and he was always singing. He would sing old songs and stuff. He was a good singer. So that kind of brought in the harmonizing part of it. Anthony was doing, well, I call him Anthony, Crazy Bone. He was doing both of them. He was like singing and rapping, and it kind of gelled together. Cause they didn't use beats back then. They used to get a pencil and paper and smoke a joint and sit on the porch and just write that shit, man. No instrumental or nothing, man. It was crazy how they was coming up with these melodies and these harmonies with no music, with nothing in the background. They always did. Anthony lived in the studio. I call him Anthony again. Crazy Bone lived in the studio. You know, he lived. That was like a place where he lived. Like, he would get up in the morning and he would go to the studio. A lot of the stuff that he did in that studio was so advanced that a lot of the other Bone members didn't even bother to put a verse on it. It was too complicated. So a lot of stuff like that wound up not even being completed. You know, they did a lot of songs. If you notice, let me think, what album? The Art of War. If you listen to that Art of War, you can hear Crazy's influence on pretty much 90% of that album.
Yeah.
He did all the choruses, all the chorus lines, all the hooks. He came up with all the concepts and stuff. Well, those guys just pretty much, for lack of a better word, put their 2 cents in on what he already had going.
I see.
You know, I mean, not taking nothing from them, but you know, Crazy Bone was he spearheaded everything. Bone was Lazy Bone was more of a businessman. Crazy Bone was the artistic source of that whole group. And that's a prime example of what that's a prime example of what I've been saying, you know, about him and his skills, because that was an acapella, and he wrote that dry. I was there, and we drank like a 40 ounce and sat there with a pencil and paper and put that together. And then he recited. He said, "Man, tell me how this shit sound, man." And the shit was crazy at the time that he did it. Nobody was doing shit like that. Like Twister, the boy from Do or Die, all them guys that was talking about them boys been tongue twisting. You hear me? And I put that on Tombstone's grave right there. They been tongue twisting. Back when I'm 34 years old, and I'm talking about when we was 14, 15.
Wow.
Them boys tongue twisting, okay, in school.
Yeah.
When they was the Band-Aid boys, you hear me?
Yeah.
We had talent shows in junior. He was called the Band-Aid boys before they was ever Bone Thugs. How many me with the Band-Aid boys. They had Band-Aids on their cheeks. Coming to school, it's called the Band-Aid boys. And they were tongue twisters. So, you know, anybody out there that's talking about Bone bit they style or they did this, they don't know what they're talking about. Because they hardly ever even listen to anybody else's music because they were too busy making their own shit. You know?
Right.
A lot of it was Busy Bone. A lot of it was Flesh and Bone. They just didn't have a complete group. You know, you gotta keep the same ingredients that you had that made you successful. You got to stay consistent. Y'all had started out with these many people. So y'all want to continue. Busy, he was inconsistent. He had problems, mostly emotional problems, drug problems. He couldn't focus. Flesh and Bone the same way. Emotional problems, drug problems, couldn't focus. So that leaves you with Lazy, Crazy, and Wish.
Right.
Those three guys, that's not the whole of Bone Thugs Harmony. That's not Bone Thugs Harmony. You know, and so that's what caused, that was actually the benchmark of their decline, you know. Couldn't stay together. Lack of unity. You know? And as long as they was bucking her, everything was beautiful. But when they decided not to anymore, that's when shit started hitting the fan. And she pretty much owned them. They couldn't do nothing without her consent. She had to sign off on everything that they did. And that was a problem with them. They wanted to be free from her, and it was impossible. The contract that they signed, I don't know the details of the contract, but they couldn't get out of it. They're just now, in the recent years, free of her. That's why you see them going to these